Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with a couple nerds.
Nathan Erdoc.
Nerdarchy's Ted.
And our intro to D&D continues. This time we're going to be talking about the monk. Whether it's your first set of dice or your 100th set of dice, Easy Roller Dice for all your dice rolling needs. You can jump down the description below where you can find a link to easyrollerdice.com/nerdarchy, as well as a coupon code for a one-time use, 20% off. Go get your Easy Roller Dice.
Today we're going to continue with our series of Intro to D&D. Today we're talking classes, the monk.
Right. So the monk, when you think of the monk, you're going to think of monasteries. You're going to think of old men cloistered away in robes,
So
perhaps.
Daily contemplation and meditation.
Let's spend 10 years thinking about how to do this or how to do that.
Well, hey, if you can punch through walls afterwards.
Speaking of punching through walls, maybe you guys seen the recent Netflix series featuring Iron Fist. He would be a classic example of a monk to play in D&D.
And that actually speaks very well to that trope of he trains and meditates for a long period of time. He's literally a child when he disappears, and he comes back a fully grown man and able to do all of these really cool things.
And speaking of kids with funky powers and monk skills, Aang from Avatar is a good example, and most of the series is him training and figuring out how to elevate his power and his,
So, I mean, that would
his ability.
that would literally be leveling up through adventure in D&D.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. That's exactly right.
And then for you older folks out there like myself, maybe you're familiar with a popular Kung Fu TV series that came out back in like the 70s, actually called Kung Fu.
So if that's not enough, if you look at any of the martial arts movies and you want to replicate any of that kind of stuff, the monk is the easy way to go to do it.
So let's talk about some of the iconic things about actually playing a monk. In D&D, if you want to fight things and punch them and hit them with your fists and not use weapons as well as not use armor, then the monk is probably the way you want to go.
And that actually, speaks to the fact that they are so trained in combat that they're the only class that actually gets proficiency at punching things and actually rolling damage as opposed to a static number. And their armor class is based off of a formula on their stats that doesn't take in, they don't have to wear armor to get a better armor class.
Yeah, they literally get an ability called martial arts. It's one of their class features. Also, monks get the medium hit die. They're, it's not the highest like the warrior, but it's not the lowest like your caster classes. And they get a plethora of special abilities. They get interesting proficiencies they can choose from.
Now, they're a very physical character, but yeah, some of their abilities kind of speak to cerebral, and they're the only class in the game that actually just gives you blanket proficiency in all saving throws, which means they're going to be able to shrug off a lot of effects that wind up happening throughout the game.
So that's a later level power?
So one of the interesting things about monk is the fact that they get martial arts, and it's not just that they get martial arts; they have other abilities that actually go along with that.
Yeah, and all those abilities are fueled with their Kai points. So whether they want to jump fast, jump higher, whether they want to be able to fight quicker and get more some extra attacks in,
Or they just, be more mobile around the battlefield.
yes.
They're also one of the few non-warrior classes that gets the extra attack ability too, and lends to their martial prowess.
So while they have this fighting ability like the other classes, they also have abilities that they can use while being in combat, including the ability to deflect missiles that are incoming. And if you catch something that's a thrown weapon, you can actually catch it and throw it right back. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very thematic, and it goes with many of the kung fu martial arts kind of tropes that we've seen in movies, books, comic books, all that good stuff.
And one thing that you see in comic books and movies a lot is characters getting kicked off a balcony or something like that. And they fall a great distance, and they actually get back up and they still fight. And that's shown in the slow fall that they get as monks, is they take less damage as they fall.
Well, that's another thing that speaks to the monk is just all around their mobility. Like you mentioned, how their ability to do the slow fall from great heights and barely be injured, as well as they're faster on their feet. They can move faster. Eventually, they can run across water as well as move up walls.
Well, and you said they're faster. As you gain levels, you actually have increased speed, so you can move further and further each round. So that's essentially being double what everybody else can do.
And one of the fascinating things about the monk is, as they progress and become more powerful, they just gain mastery over their own being, their own body, like no other character class.
So some of that is reflected in the fact that there's monsters that require magic weapons to hit, and monks have the ability to get rid of that penalty. Their bodies essentially become magical enough to injure those creatures.
Yes, their unarmed strikes can actually harm them. There's only one other character class that can do that in the whole player's handbook.
And also through their training and meditation and general fitness, they start gaining things like immunity to disease and poisons, and they can fight well into their old age, like they were fighting in their prime.
And that actually stems that they can't actually be magically aged. That's pretty cool.
They're the true master of self, as a monk should be. Now, when playing a monk, you have several paths you can choose from, and all of them really fit different tropes and themes from, like your wire fu movies or different animes.
So if your Kung Fu TV series, I think he would fall more into the way of the standard option, which is way of the open hand.
Yes, that one is all about just fighting things in unarmed combat, pretty much. And, lends us a little bit more to that self-control than the other ones do, where the other ones are a little bit more external.
And you had brought up Aang from Avatar. He would fall into the way of the elements.
Yes, and eventually you can use spell-like effects with your key power.
Yeah, whether it's throwing a fireball, making shields of air, or controlling water or one of the other elements just through your movements.
You literally bend the elements to your will?
You could say
Like
that.
a elemental bender.
Or airbender, firebender, earthbender, waterbender.
Yeah.
So the last option is Way of the Shadow. And I think this kind of speaks to the more sneaky ninja-esque type things.
Just ninja. It's just straight up. They should just call it Path of the Ninja, because you're literally you have control over darkness. You can hide and move through shadows with ease. You can even at some point get to teleport through shadows.
So then, what would you say would be good races that fit the monk archetype?
Man, in D&D, you're going to want a good dex if you're playing a monk, and a good wisdom, most likely. They're pretty much the prime stats, but there's so many others that are going to be helpful. Monk is a tough class because it does require more stats than some of the other ones. Or it doesn't require, but if you want to be optimized and more effective, it's going to be helpful.
So,
But if we just went with dex and wisdom, we're looking at a wood elf is really good at being a monk.
That is correct. And I believe that is the only combination in the player's handbook that gets there. Now, you could go human, because humans can do everything.
humans can do everything, and they
pretty
have
well.
they have the versatility of where they put their stats if you go with the variant.
Half elves can also put their two of their stats in the places they want. So if they pick dex and wisdom, then they've got the same qualification for that.
And circling back to human, even if you don't go with the variant, you just give a plus to all your stats. So that's not a bad deal there either.
Having more required stats than other class, or not required, but having useful in more stats, going with the non-variant, you're better at all of them. So
Then there's sub races like the Halflings Stout, which is a bonus to both con and dex. Going to be useful stats.
it's going to give you more hit points and more agility. Totally works.
And the hill dwarf gets constitution and wisdom, and because monks are fighting class, it's good to have the extra hit points whenever you can get them.
Yeah, well, in addition to that, the Hill Dwarf also gets a bonus hit point every level. So that's going to make them even more tanky than just the high constitution.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, you can play anything you want to play when playing a monk. You can use any of the races, any of the combinations. These are just some of the ones that are going to be a little bit more effective.
So if you have any questions on playing a monk, you can ask those down in the comments below, and either ourselves or one of our awesome fans will be more than happy to answer those questions for you. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Remember to grab those dice at easyrollerdice.com/nerdarchy, and that coupon code is down in the description.
And while you're at it, you can check out the articles over at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.